I like the optimistic advice to think, if I had a superpower that whatever I do will work, what would I do? And then think, okay, what's preventing you from actually doing it? But that's probably the right way to know what you should be doing. And I think with Zeffy, we've been optimistic and we believed it was going to work, because I think we're very optimistic by nature, but I would just encourage people to be optimistic, because even if you start with a zero fee model and you're young and you're not an experienced entrepreneur, if you do something you really want to achieve and that's really true to your values, I think it's going to work.
Welcome to the Going Big podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Gentry, and this is the place where we celebrate bold moves and big ideas. Each week, I sit down with inspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are making a significant impact in their careers and in their communities. Whether you're looking to level up your leadership, pursue your passion, or just get inspired to take your next big leap, this is where those stories come to life. Now, if you're listening on iTunes, YouTube, or anywhere else you tune into podcasts, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Now, let's dive in to what it means to truly go big.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Going Big podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Gentry, and it's great to be with you again. On today's episode, we have someone who's not only gone big individually, but gone big on behalf of tens of thousands of nonprofit organizations. This is an exciting episode. My guest today is François de Kerret, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zeffy, which is a 100% free fundraising platform for nonprofits. You may be familiar with the name Zeffy. Zeffy has partnered with Going Big on a number of occasions recently in recent episodes, and it's a great demonstration of a good definition of partnership, because we have shared values and shared principles and shared objectives. And it's just a treat to have François, who saw a problem, a frustration that he'd turned into a business opportunity, which is also very much in line with his desire to help maximize the good that social change agents can do through nonprofit organizations. And again, the idea of delivering 100% of a donor's gifts to the nonprofit with no fees, no charges, etc. And how he did it and what he's built is really very, very interesting. So, François de Kerret, it's great to have you as our guest today on the Going Big podcast.
Thanks a lot, Kevin, for having me. And it's such a great show. I'm really, really happy to be there today.
Well, can't wait to go into your journey and just the stories about the obstacles that you faced, the risks that you took. But to kick us off, what was the problem or frustration that you saw that you thought Zeffy could address, could get to the root causes of?
Yeah. Initially, my first motivation, I wanted to start volunteering. And we'll see why it became a frustration. But initially, a lot of my early childhood or being a student, I did a lot of volunteer work. It came, I think, from my parents that were really involved in the community and that taught me that I was part of the lucky one and I should participate in giving back and being useful. And so I was growing up in France and I moved to Canada approximately 10 years ago, and I wanted to keep volunteering. And so I searched online what were the opportunities, what were the needs in the community. And where I thought it would be easy, like most online search, it was already Airbnb. You're looking for a place to stay, 3 clicks, and you're in. You want to buy shoes. It's not even 3 clicks, it's 1 click, and the shoes are at your doorstep. But understanding and finding the needs of the community, it was an entire process of sending PDF applications and not really understanding what I would do. And it was super frustrating because at the end of the day, I just wanted to be useful and give my time for free. But it was more complicated than useless things like buying shoes. And I really felt the frustration, not really for me, because, well, I made it and I found a nonprofit, but that's something so important, like volunteer work was so difficult to do. And I thought we could get so much more people involved if we made it easier, and tech can make it easier. So that was really my initial frustration that brought to the first version of Zeffy almost 10 years ago now.
Wow. Well, you're dead on correct, I think. It's funny because we have people who are so passionate about a cause. They see a problem in society. They want to get to the root causes of and fix it through a nonprofit effort. And we want to help them, but it is often not easy to help them. Websites are just notoriously difficult to navigate. I get so frustrated when I make a contribution and it says, what is your customer reference number or something like that? And it's just so complicated. Well, this is the good stuff to really dig into. But Francois, when did you realize that Zeffy was more than just a solution? It was actually becoming a movement. Because what you're doing is really transforming fundraising, and it's aspects of the transformational part that I really want to dig into today. But when did you begin to see, wow, this is more than just a solution, it's a movement?
I think you said it well. There's still frustration, and sometimes you want to support a cause and it's difficult and it shouldn't be. And I think there are two important moments. The first moment is when I started to understand why nonprofits didn't have such a great website. And it's pretty straightforward. It's just they want to put everything towards the mission, and building a website is just a step towards the mission, but it's not the mission directly. And so that's really a big moment, because that's when we realized we had to be 100% free. We had to find a way to really equip nonprofits with great technology in a way that fits their organization and their structure, where all the funds have to go to the mission. So that's a bit why we started with this 100% free model for the fundraising platform. Now, I think when I think of big moments, I think there's one we haven't achieved, because as you said, there's still moments where supporting a nonprofit is difficult. And what I want is that it's not the case. Today, if you buy, to keep with the shoes, there's no brand where it will be difficult to buy their product online, because e-commerce technology are so widespread across the industry. So I think the moment where we'll have made it is that it's always easy to support nonprofits, and you will receive great communication from them after your contribution. Yet we have a couple of milestones. For example, when we celebrated 1 billion processed by all those nonprofits, it was such a great celebration. And more recently, we did a market analysis, and we realized we were the first choice amongst nonprofit with no technology or just PayPal. So really, the more grassroots nonprofit, the first technology choice is Zeffy for them. So I think we really found a way to become the go-to choice for those that don't have such a great website, that don't have such great fundraising technology.
All right. Okay. So this is terrific. And again, I mean, those of you who are listening, I mean, he's took this concept to now helping more than 50,000 nonprofits, and as Francois just said, they just crossed the $1 billion mark in contributions that they've helped facilitate. It's just extraordinary. So, Francois, okay, I got to tell you, so what your idea really ran against the grain in so many ways. It's sort of totally counter to both what fintech and fundraising would suggest. How did you, first of all, address all those who said, this is crazy, this can't be done?
Yes, and there were quite a few, because when you know fintech, Zeffy comes with a bet, because how we're funded is through optional contribution. So tomorrow you support a food bank, you give $100, the food bank will get 100. And we really funded Zeffy because people will add a contribution, a couple, $2, $3, $4. And the bet is that for us, it costs money because we have to pay afterward Visa and MasterCard, etc. There's a fee that we have to cover. So if people wouldn't have contributed enough, we would have been bankrupt, like the fastest bankrupt you would
Right.
see in life, because we would literally lose money as we serve more nonprofit. And so a lot of people didn't believe in this model, and I understand. And our answer has always been execution and just trying. And even today, it's an important value at Zeffy to just get things moving, get things done. And with my co-founder, we just gave ourselves 3 months to test it. It was October, almost 10 years ago. And we just said, look, let's give ourselves until Christmas we want to try it. We want to process $50,000 and see if that works, if nonprofits like it, if people contribute. And we met with those great 5-10 nonprofits who fell in love with the model, and it worked, and people contributed us. So I think we just had to prove it with execution. And then after, investors, well, they didn't really believe in the pitch, but they would see the numbers, the traction, the love from nonprofits, and invest in the company.
It's amazing. I got to tell you, when I started, when people said, tell me about the Zeffy, and when I would explain your concept, the immediate response for people was to frown and say, well, I can't see that working. I'm like, well, I'm just telling you, it's obviously worked. He's not doing this just for free. It's obviously going. What was it that you saw that no one else saw?
Yeah. Honestly, at the time, it was not such intellectualized. I think at the time, the key difference is we just wanted to make this available to nonprofits who were 24, just fresh out of university. And probably that's why we thought less about business and sustainability. We just wanted to try it. And we also had this, it was not entirely new, because what platform were selling at the time, it was a fee plus a contribution. So they would charge a GoFundMe at the time. They would charge 3% and then suggest a tip. And so our bet was just, people are generous with tip. We can go a step further and be the first 100% platform. And then looking back, we understand that nonprofits are so much pressure on their funding that this 100% is so important, because sometimes they just don't have any expense at all. So adding a fundraising expense is just ridiculous when they just have literally no expenses.
It's amazing. I mean, essentially, you're saying, "Hey, look, I can increase your revenue 5 to 8% above what you would ordinarily raise just by eliminating the fees that you're having to pay," which is extraordinary. By the way, I love the fact that you started this when you were fairly young. I hear a lot about. I want to get into risk taking, but I do think people at an earlier stage in their careers are willing to take on more risk. Let me ask you this, because what I also love about this, you know, the Going Big podcast is very popular in the nonprofit category, and we obviously work with a lot of nonprofits. We're speaking to them, and fundraising comes up. But you did this as a business model, as an entrepreneur, which is in and of itself so much we want to learn from. But back to the nonprofit side, do you think that we in the nonprofit sector tend to think too small?
It's a great question. I think people in the nonprofit still I think sometimes think small, but it's so important to think small, because what's happening in the community sometimes is that small, but it's so important and so key that people take actions locally, that I think there is the small and the good small, but I also meet with nonprofit director, and I feel like talking with startup entrepreneurs who want to build those billion-dollar companies because they want to solve problems so deeply, such as they want to literally solve homelessness, or they want to solve like they want to find a cure for a disease that affected them. And so they have this great ambition. And so I would say they still have this amazing ambition, but where I see the challenge is finding sometimes, and that's the key difference between for-profit and non-profit is that a for-profit, they can raise money and waste a lot of money in the process before having the impact. Whereas if you want to solve homelessness, but you're saying, look, the first 10 million, I will just use for marketing and website and awareness because I have a plan for what's next. Even if the plan is great and you will exactly solve it, it's just not acceptable. And so I think that's part of what we're trying to solve with bringing the technology piece for free. But that's really the challenge in going big for nonprofit, I believe. What do you think? I'm curious to hear.
I think we tend to think too small. And that's why I'm doing this podcast in many ways, is to encourage people to cast a big, bold vision. You know, one of the most famous stories I cite is there was a group called the Variety Club of New England about 100 years ago, and they raised money generally. They were kind of like the early days of a community foundation or a donor advised fund, but they would raise money and then award it, give it, grant it. And they did it through telethons and dinners. And they went to Boston Children's Hospital and met with the head of the hematology department and said, look, we're willing to make a significant contribution to Boston Children's Hospital. What would you do with the money if we were to give it to you? And the head of the hematology department said, I'd probably buy another microscope. But Dr. Sidney Farber, who was down the hall, heard this and came running out of his office and said, with that kind of money, I would find a cure for cancer. And of course, the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute at Harvard is significant. Dr. Sidney Farber, considered to be the modern father of chemotherapy, addressed so many childhood cancer issues. But that idea of, make no little plans, as the architect Daniel Burnham said. Well, here's a related question. Do you think that nonprofits struggle in how to scale their impact?
Yes, definitely. It's definitely a challenge I've seen and discussed. I'm just thinking the reason, maybe you're right, is that it's less cultural to go big and think about big plans. I'm wondering if there's no also cultural pressure on nonprofit that failure is worthly seen in a nonprofit than in a private company, or the risk-taking approach. Because at the end, if you fail, you're wasting donor money and wasting philanthropy money, and it's bad. And failing is part of trying, so it shouldn't be bad, but probably it's related to this pressure.
Well, thank you, Francois. Yeah, I pick up, that there is more of a risk aversion. I can't quite put my finger on the why, but now let me bring this again back to Zeffy, because this is what makes having you on this conversation so fascinating. Dan Pallotta, famously, the nonprofit innovator and disruptor, famously said as part of that TED Talk that nonprofits were too fixated on overhead costs, and we're not thinking, and in a way it became a constraint to going big. Do you think that Zeffy has effectively addressed his critics? That is to say, you're helping to demonstrate that there shouldn't be these constraints, these boundaries.
Exactly, but it's funny because there's really two opposite arguments here. Because at the end of the day, I agree with Dan Pallotta. I think he has an example of scaling a nonprofit and investing probably, millions in marketing and being a scandal because people say, look, he's overspending in marketing, but without understanding that this marketing was just generating more impact and more scale for the nonprofit work. So with this, I agree that nonprofits should be able to invest overhead for technology. And so being free in that situation, that nonprofits have the opportunity to invest for technology would not be needed. So deep in my heart, it would be okay that there are technologies that are costly for nonprofits. But I think how it's done, we have to understand donors behind them, that it's so natural as a donor that you want the big part of your money to go to impact and not overhead. And so probably there's another thing to do, which is educating donors that it's normal that there are fees involved, but we'll never make it totally that you give 100 and you're like, it's okay, and invest whatever you want, because it's so human that you want to help. And so I think Zeffy, in a way, is solving this overhead issue by just giving the technology for free so that they get more funds for other overhead. And so what's fun is that you could say, look, we're giving 5% more to nonprofits, and 5% compared to 100. Well, it's still nice, but it's just 5%. But the truth is a nonprofit, they have, on the 100%, they have access only to 20% to scale. And so what we're giving with the 5% is huge compared to the 20%. They just have way more available to scale because we're giving more overhead. So I don't know if it's too technical, this specific part, but we're just giving more overhead to nonprofits.
Yeah. Well, we don't complain about how much Starbucks spends on marketing. I'm not going to complain about how much Zeffy spends on marketing, because you've got to reach 50,000 customers, et cetera. But it's a weird thing. Okay, let me tap into something else. What was it that you saw that no one else saw? And what I mean by that is, because you came up with this amazing discovery. What do you think it says to the human psychology that you can build this off of tipping, off of voluntary tipping? You're not charging more. I mean, what was the belief that you had, and what is the discovery that's been made about how humans behave? Because obviously they're doing it, or Zeffy wouldn't be around, and it certainly wouldn't be growing.
Yeah, it's just behind this is transparency. That's super important to discuss, because most of the time, the 5 or 8% fee, it was just in the background. The nonprofit wouldn't tell the donors, and sometimes they would realize, not. And so what we did is to put it really forefront, like, look, 100% will go to the nonprofit. And then at first, we had to even more educate donors that were saying, like, well, it's always the case. But no, they just didn't realize. And so just putting in the forefront that 100% will go to the nonprofit really motivated donors to advocate it. I think that's really the key driver in this equation.
Well, it's really fascinating. All right. So what was the scariest decision you ever had to make? I mean, again, you took this concept and you've gone big. Obviously, it wasn't just an easy path to where you are. I get the impression that you continue I'm guessing you want to grow beyond North America, but tell us about what the sort of scariest decision you ever faced as you looked about building Zeffy.
Yeah, it's funny, a big decision we made. Well, two big decisions that were made approximately at the same moment is when we decided to launch in the US.
So you started in Canada? You just started in Canada?
Yeah. Yeah, we started only in Montreal,
okay.
Quebec. And then we scaled to Quebec, Canada. And then obviously we wanted to have this impact at scale. And there's so many great nonprofits in the US. We wanted to scale. And so it was a big decision because we were still small at the time. It was, a couple of years after our launch. And we went to see investors who told them, look, it's risky. You have this free model. You don't know anything about the US. What's your marketing plan? And we're just giving them plan, and they would not be convinced. They wanted more details, go to market step by step. And I don't like doing plans for too precise where you don't know. You have to launch it and you'll see. And so the big risk we took, we said, look, let's launch in the US with no investors and then come and see investors. And we actually launched in 3 weeks, with the engineering team being amazing. We launched in 3 weeks. We asked all of our nonprofits in Canada if they knew any counterpart or friend of them in the US. They introduced us. And in a month, we had traction in the US, and we went back to those exact investors and we raised money in, in 2 months. It was really great. So that's a first decision.
Amazing.
Maybe
I mean, and to go from Canada to the U.S., you're effectively 10xing because the U.S. population is 10 times that of Canada. That's a big market.
Yeah, and people give more in the US than in Canada, so I did even like 20x with this in mind. So yeah, nowadays we work now, I think, with 80,000 nonprofits, and 70,000 of them are in the US. So it was a key driver in our growth.
Well, my data is out of date. You're at 80,000 nonprofits?
Yes, we're going fast.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so I don't want to jump in too much, but what did what you did teach you about growing at scale? And for the benefit of everyone listening, give us some advice, because these are bold moves, and we're talking about how do we grow at scale? What advice would you give? What did you learn from this?
First thing is very obvious, but it's the importance of hiring the best people. And we see those the social media posts, I don't know, where like large companies are only 40, 50, 60. And I think I understand that if you recruit the really 40 people that fit your vision, that are driven by your mission, that have the right values and skill set, you can do amazing things. And today we're only 40 at Zeffy, but I think we managed to recruit those kind of
How many?
Of people. 40 people.
You have 40
only.
people and you're servicing 80,000 nonprofits?
Yes, so it's a very small team, and probably five years ago we were 20, which was, for the size we had at the time, a regular size. But it's just we did some mishire. I think it happens to all founders. And we realized how costly and how inefficient we would become, and how people would be unhappy because they had those small friction and debate. And so just hiring incredible people, and it's just, there's no incredible enough. Like, it has to be so difficult. I tell the team, a new hire is a miracle. Someone we managed to find is a miracle. We want to be at this level of talent, at the miracle level. So that's probably my first advice, and everybody tells it, but I just want to reinforce it.
Well, let me jump in here. Okay, so you're very positive. I got to think is you make it sound too easy. Yes, we all. That's great advice. We want to hire on values and skills, passion for the mission, and the ability to get the job done. It's not an either or. You got to have both. How do you find those people?
I hustle. It's even today, as a CEO, probably a third or 50% of my time is meeting with people, networking with, when I meet someone super talented, even if they are not available to work with Zeffy, I stay connected. I try to meet their smart relatives. I try to spend time with people that I find incredibly smart and that have the right values. And eventually they bring the right person. But it's a long-term hustle, and some jobs have been opened for a year at Zeffy, and it's okay. And so there's almost no other answer than yes. So evaluating the skills, you do a case study, values, you have to understand your values, what you're looking for. But at the end, you have to understand that it's a huge amount of work, and it's okay. And I think that's really the key. If it's easy, you're not doing it well enough.
Right. You say you're spending a third of your time networking and meeting with people, and you're always on the lookout for just good, smart, passionate people.
Yes. And when we find one, it's okay if we don't have the perfect job description at the time for the person. We just try to hire them.
Do you have any recommendations on how you stay in touch with people? I mean, how do you organize all this? Is that all in your head, or is it a very sophisticated CRM? Are you tapping artificial intelligence? What's going on?
Honestly, it's not super sophisticated. It's a mix of CRM and in my head, just trying to catch up with great talent. But it's a great point. I think I should have a better technology to make sure I keep track of those top talents.
Yeah. All right, well, okay. So as an entrepreneur, as a founder, how do you stay true to your mission and grow? I mean, are there times when you say no to certain suggestions of growth?
On a daily basis. No, maybe not, but I think there's two kinds, three kinds. I won't make it too long, but the first, of course, is our deep values and beliefs. And of course, there's investors who, I don't know, called me, hey, François, but why don't you charge just the 3% fee, which is what people do from PayPal and Stripe, and ask for a tip on top? I think you will grow your margins. Or, hey, François, why not do a premium plan when, I don't know, you can do donation form for free, but if you want to do a gala and membership, you have to pay an extra. So all the things that go against our deep belief, we have to be strong. And sometimes it's difficult because when the company is not going well or things in the market happens, that's where it's difficult to be true to your belief. But that's, I think, the first category. Second one is more cultural, is just not to have too many priorities. And as a CEO, I really think of my responsibility as making sure that we go on the right fish and we know what's important for impact, for nonprofit, for our growth. And we don't do all those ideas that sound well on paper, but it's just you can't do. There's just so many things you can do well.
Yeah.
And people, especially smart people, they have great ideas all the time, and you want to encourage it, but you have to say, look, what is our focus? What will build the best technology ever for nonprofit? And yes, we could add this, new kind of very niche fundraising. But if we do the best donation form, the best ticketing, the best membership, and that's where we're serving really nonprofit. So that's the second category. I don't know if you have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but by the way, are you the one who says no, or do you need people around you to remind you to say no?
That's when you hire great people.
Of course.
Because sometimes I say yes, and where I shouldn't say. And my co-founder and really great hires that really own those values too now.
All right, one more question about talent. What do you think separates small thinkers from big thinkers? I presume that part of the values and skills mix, you want people who are going to think big like you have. What do you think separates small thinkers from big thinkers, or does it matter?
I love this question because we don't ask the question the same way, but it's the same. We ask ourselves, we want to hire ambitious people. So I think that's exactly the same. And maybe I can share how we evaluate it. And it's very specific. I know people will know in our interview, but they will have the drive to listen to your podcast, so it's okay. And we ask this question about what do you want to achieve? You know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? But we just ask it again and again. Like, in 5 years, maybe you don't know, but when you retire, what do you want to have done? What will make you say you're proud of your career? And we just want to see something in their eyes that they want to achieve in their life. And it's okay if they tell us, look, right now I'm a software engineer, but someday I will have a bakery and I will do the best breads ever. or any dreams they have, but that's how we evaluate it. We just want to see something they're passionate about, how they want to achieve. It's very simple, I think, but it has worked pretty well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now you understand why I wanted to have François de Kerret on the Going Big podcast. This is great. Okay, so the other nice thing is because you work with tens of thousands of nonprofit causes, you get to work with some really great causes and founders and leaders who have extraordinary ambition to do great things and live a life of tremendous purpose and meaning. I see your posts on social media. You're liking a lot of great causes all the time. Are there one or two that stand out that you would like to share with people listening about, why you think they're doing something special and important? I know I'm asking you to pick your favorite child, and you've got 80,000 nonprofits, but is there one or two that jump out?
What really strikes me is the stories of the founders often, because I can't pick between the causes, because it's really just too sometimes heartbreaking, and those people literally supporting child that have diseases that won't be cured, and sometimes there's people that are addressing macro issues in such a smart way that they want to literally bridge inequalities and get the drivers that will allow people that grew up in misery to become successful in life and become great people. And it's just so much things that they do. But what strikes me is the drive of those founders that say, there's one guy, he decided to run from Montreal, Quebec to Mexico to just raise awareness on a bird species that's just going extinct. And he just decides to give himself this crazy challenge. Or there's those, just almost every founder, you see them the weekend, they wake up at 6 and they take their truck and they go drive to pick up the food that they will serve at the food bank. And I think that's probably what strikes me the most, is the level of energy that those nonprofit people put in their work. And just connecting to Dan Pelota is that sometimes people think in nonprofit leaders are overpaid or any misconception compared to the private sectors, but what they do is it's just remarkable.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. And for those of you listening who are leading nonprofit organizations, and we know you are leading with tremendous dedication, just know people like François and I are taking notice and are cheering you on. So thank you. François, I want to begin to bring this to a close. This is really fascinating and inspiring as well. Where do you see fundraising going in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, what you're doing is adding a remarkable element of disruption and innovation. Do you have any sort of thoughts on where things may be continuing to go?
Yeah, well, it really loops back to the example I had with e-commerce and Shopify. Like today, every e-commerce is in Shopify or a good competitor. In 5 years, what I want and what I think is happening, probably Zeffy will have an impact, but I think there are other people pushing technologies and building good technology to nonprofit. I think in 5 years, we won't have this experience of you want to support a cause and it's not a good experience. It's not free. And not only on the front of those fundraising forms, but also in the back end and offering a CRM and a way to manage donors. And that's, by the way, the other part that Zeffy is doing today. It's a fundraising platform and a CRM. And it's so great when you do both because, right now, you contact donors at lapsed donors from 2025. Well, in Zeffy, it's easy because we know who are your lapsed donors. And so we can tell you in the CRM part what you have to do. But so in 5 years, I think most nonprofits will be on a great fundraising technology and a great CRM. And it will give them so much power compared to Excel and so much more impact. So that's, I think, bridging the gap. But my other bet and dream is that the AI gap won't happen. I don't want to see in 5 years private companies with powerful AI driving more impact and not nonprofit. And I'm pretty sure this won't happen, and nonprofit will have as great technology to operate their mission.
Well, François, as we were talking at the beginning, I was just in Montreal last week and offering training for a number of nonprofits there in Canada. And my colleague was leading a substantial discussion about how to use artificial intelligence in your nonprofit work, because we don't want these great causes to be left behind and instead to be leading and blazing the same trails and innovation. So thank you. That's a great word of encouragement too. I want to, in bringing this to a close, I usually ask these two questions. The first one is, thinking back on a younger version of yourself, would you have done anything differently? How would you advise that younger version of yourself to do anything differently? François, I know you're still a young person, so I don't know how far back you want to go, but looking back, how would you do anything differently?
The tip I would give myself is, and it's not to give the name again, but I would take bolder bets. Because I think Zeffy worked because we've been bold and we worked really, really hard. But I think if we had been even bolder, we could have just worked less and be a bit easier. It was tough, but had the same level of impact or even more impact, being even more radical in what has to be done, what has to be done well to scale impact, and what is just what shouldn't be done. So I would have been even bolder if I had to give a tip to myself.
Wow, that's great advice. It's funny you say that, actually, and I don't think anybody has actually given that advice before, but we wish that we had invested more at an earlier age. We wish perhaps we had exercised more at an earlier age. In fundraising, we wish that we'd invested in more acquisition efforts earlier on. And you're saying you just wish you'd gone bolder. That is extraordinary. So with that, for everyone listening around the world, who, by the way, should be looking into using Zeffy, but what advice would you give to anyone listening based on all that you've done and intend to do, the ambition you have to accomplish more? What advice would you have to think about how we should all live a life of purpose and meaning and go big with respect to that?
I like the optimistic advice to think, if I had a superpower that whatever I do will work, what would I do? And then think, okay, what's preventing you from actually doing it? But that's probably the right way to know what you should be doing. And I think with Zeffy, we've been optimistic and we believed it was going to work, because I think we're very optimistic by nature. But I would just encourage people to be optimistic, because even if you start with a zero fee model and you're young and you're not an experienced entrepreneur, if you do something you really want to achieve and that's really true to your values, I think it's going to work.
Well, here we are going into the holiday season, and I'm sure that the charitable spirit that people have will intensify, and hopefully they will be thinking of ways to give that 100% directly to the causes they want to support. François de Kerret, it's been a real pleasure getting to meet and spend time with you today, and encourage you to keep doing and going big. We really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks a lot. It was a great moment. Thanks a lot for having me, Kevin.
All right. And I guess I should say Joyeux Noël. Merry Christmas.
Joyeux Noël.
Thanks for tuning in to the Going Big podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling energized and ready to tackle your biggest goals. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps spread the word, and it gets these inspiring stories out to more people. You can also find more content, resources, and updates at our website, goingbigpodcast.com. Remember, the only limits are the ones you don't challenge, the limits that you impose on yourself. Keep pushing, keep growing, and above all, keep going big. See you next time on the Going Big podcast.